Have you noticed the buzz around electric vehicles lately?
Eh.
I mean, they seem to be everywhere, right?
Oh, absolutely. Sleek new models gliding past, headlines shouting about the future of transport.
Yeah, exactly. But have you ever, like, stopped to think about what really makes someone choose an EV? Or why they still feel so expensive for a lot of us, even with all this talk about battery costs dropping?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. So today we're going to peel back the layers and a deep dive into electric vehicles, EVs. We'll look at, the surprising history, what drives people to buy them, the economics, and the crucial role of innovation.
And to help us get a clear picture, we've lined up some really insightful sources. We've got a recent study looking at EV marketing,
Okay,
an analysis of R&D spending in the industry, which is fascinating, and several economic reviews looking at pricing, business models, all that stuff.
great. So our mission here is basically to cut through all the noise. We want to give you kind of shortcut to understanding the whole EV landscape, consumer psychology, industry investment, policy, the works.
Yeah, get ready for some maybe surprising facts and hopefully a much clearer idea of where this is all heading.
Okay, let's start with a bit of history because this actually blew my mind a little. EVs aren't new.
Not at all.
They were some of the very first cars. Think about President Woodrow Wilson driving his Milburn Electric, getting 60, 70 miles range over a century ago.
It's amazing, right? Back in the early 1900s, companies like Baker Electric, Detroit Electric,
Right.
they actually outsold gas cars for a time, made up something like 28% of cars on U.S. roads.
Wow. What would Wilson think of a Tesla today?
Ah, good question. But yeah, that early lead, it didn't last. By the 1920s, things shifted.
Why was that?
Well, gas cars just got more powerful, they could go much further, and critically, you could refuel them in minutes. Electric tech back then just couldn't compete on those points.
Right, makes sense. But fast forward to now, and we're seeing this huge comeback, a modern renaissance, you could say.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Driven by, well, better motors, way more charging stations popping up, and obviously big concerns about climate change and air quality.
And the benefits today are pretty compelling.
There really are. Environmentally, it's pretty clear cut. EVs mean fewer greenhouse gases, less air pollution.
Hmm.
They contribute to cutting CO2. It's a big plus for sustainability.
And efficiency-wise,
Us?
here they're much better.
Oh, significantly. EVs convert electricity straight to motion, so they're over 70% efficient. Your typical gas or diesel car, even a good diesel, struggles to hit 40%.
That's a huge difference.
It is. Plus, they capture braking energy, regenerative braking. They're often 2 or 3 times better at using that energy. Very clever stuff.
And then there's the driving experience, right? Less maintenance, quieter.
Yeah, quieter ride, smoother acceleration. That instant torque is quite something. And generally lower running costs per mile for energy. No more oil changes, for instance.
Okay, so lots of positives. But historically, there were drawbacks. You mentioned range and refueling times earlier.
Exactly. And while the tech's improving fast on those fronts, the big hurdle that still remains for many people is that initial purchase price. It's still quite high.
Right. So we got the overview, benefits, hurdles. But let's get granular. What actually goes on in someone's head when they're deciding whether to buy an EV?
Well, there was a really interesting recent study, surveyed about 100 people in Malaysia, Indonesia, and India. It tried to pin down exactly that.
And what did it find? What are the key drivers?
It identified 3 core things directly affecting behavior.
Hmm.
How happy people are with EV efficiency, how happy they are with the environmental side, and public perception, how others see EV usage.
Okay, efficiency, environment, perception. Which one mattered most?
Get this. Satisfaction with being environmentally friendly. That had the strongest impact, by quite a margin, actually. The beta value was 0.594, which statistically, that's a very strong link.
Wow, so people really buy into the green aspect.
Yeah, it seems so. Most respondents felt EVs help reduce global warming, and the research backs that up: fewer emissions over the car's life, even counting production and electricity generation. That's a key marketing angle.
Makes sense. What about efficiency? Did that matter?
Yes, definitely played a role. Beta value of 0.186. Around 38% were happy with performance, mentioning the quick acceleration and better range these days. Plus, zero tailpipe emissions, reliability, lower running costs, those attract people too.
And public perception. How you look driving one.
Also significant. Beta value 0.192. People felt buying an EV would boost their image. And interestingly, 60% strongly agreed that EVs are just more comfortable to drive. Attitudes are definitely shifting. Awareness of EV advantages in the U.S. hit 75% by 2022.
Okay, but here's a twist, right? The study found something surprising about just knowing about EVs.
Yeah, this was fascinating. Just general public awareness about EVs. It turned out not to have a significant impact on actual buying behavior in this study. The beta value was tiny, 0.003.
So just knowing EVs exist isn't enough.
Apparently not. It suggests changing habits, especially big purchases like cars, needs more than just awareness. It needs to connect to, like, deeper values or real tangible benefits.
Which brings us neatly to that big barrier we mentioned, the price paradox. Batteries are getting cheaper, but EVs still cost more upfront.
Right. Look at the U.S. figures from June 2021. Average EV, even after tax credits, was over $61,000. Average gas car, around $42,000. That's a big
A
gap.
huge gap. No wonder EVs were only about 2% of new U.S. car sales back then.
Exactly. So why? Why this paradox if battery costs are falling? Professor Peter Wells has some really good points on this.
Okay, let's hear them.
Well, first perspective. Gas cars have had like over 100 years of development, constant tweaking, perfecting commercially viable EV battery chemistry. We've only really been intensely focused on that for maybe 10, 15 years. There's still a lot of innovation to come.
Okay, so they're still on a steeper part of the development curve.
Precisely. Second, battery size. Yes, the cost per kilowatt hour has plummeted, maybe 90% in a decade, which is incredible, but the batteries themselves have gotten much bigger, much more powerful.
So even if the unit cost is down, we're buying more units per car.
Exactly. Think about the first Nissan Leaf in 2011. It had a 24 kilowatt hour battery. Today, 70 kilowatt is almost standard. Bigger battery means more raw materials, more complexity, more cost.
Got it. Yes.
Third, upfront engineering. Designing totally new EV platforms like Tesla skateboard or T-tray chassis where the battery is the floor. That's super expensive initially, even if it pays off later.
Yeah.
Huge R&D investment.
Okay.
Fourth, the business model. Traditional car makers often use the razor blade model. Sell the car relatively cheap, make money on servicing, parts, financing over years.
Right. Sell the razor cheap, profit on the blades.
You got it. But EVs need much less servicing, often have longer warranties, so manufacturers feel they need to make more profit from the initial sale. That pushes the sticker price up.
Interesting point.
Fifth, Professor Wells calls it SUV addiction. We just love big, heavy vehicles, even electric ones.
Huh. Guilty as charged, maybe.
Right, so the market's full of these large EV SUVs. Think Hyundai Ioniq 5, great car, but big, heavy, uses lots of materials, costs maybe 50,000 pounds. There just aren't enough smaller, truly affordable options yet, like, a basic electric city car.
Yeah, we're the simple, cheaper electric runabouts.
Exactly. And finally, material supply. Getting enough cobalt, lithium, nickel, it's a bottleneck. Tight supply holds back production volume, and high volume is what really helps drive costs down. This pressure is why some companies, like Daimler Trucks, are exploring alternatives like LFP batteries, lithium iron phosphate, even if they have slightly lower performance, because the materials are cheaper and more available.
Okay, so that explains the high cost. Given all that, what's the path to actually making EVs affordable? How do we get to price parity with gas cars?
Well, the biggest factor is still continued drops in battery costs. That powertrain, battery, motor, electronics, it's over half the car's cost right now.
Over 51%, yeah.
And prices have plummeted 97% since 1991. The forecasts are still strong. Ford thinks 40% less by 2025. GM says 60%. Tesla predicts 50% with new battery designs, maybe enabling a $25,000 car.
A $25,000 EV. That would be a game changer.
Absolutely. The magic number everyone talks about is getting battery costs below $100 per kilowatt hour. Bloomberg NEF thought that might even happen by 2023. Maybe we're already there or very close.
Okay, so battery costs are key. What else helps?
Reducing range anxiety is another big one. As fast charging networks get better and more widespread, look at China installing over 112,000 chargers in just 1 month, December 2020. Manufacturers won't feel forced to pack in massive, expensive batteries just to calm consumer nerves.
So better infrastructure means potentially smaller, cheaper batteries are viable.
Exactly. Smaller, efficient batteries that still offer perfectly adequate range for most people's daily needs. That lowers the car's cost.
Makes sense. And you mentioned production volume earlier, economies of scale.
Definitely. Look at Norway again. 75% of new cars sold are electric. When you hit those kinds of volumes, the cost per car naturally falls. The EV industry is still young enough to really benefit from what's called Wright's Law, basically. Efficiency rockets up as you produce more units. Optimized designs, high volumes. Could be over a third cheaper by 2025.
And more competition should help too, right?
For sure. The market's growing incredibly fast. North America's projected growth, the TAGR, is over 37% by 2028. Worldwide, it's over 22% by 2027. As more players jump in traditional automakers, new startups, and offer more models beyond the high-end Teslas that dominated early on, that competition will push prices down.
Okay, and the final piece seems to be government support, policies, subsidies.
Crucial, especially in the medium term. Subsidies help people overcome that initial price hurdle, stimulate demand, which then leads to higher volumes and lower costs in the long run. They also help correct, existing market issues like gas prices not reflecting the true environmental cost or heavy taxes on fuel.
You mentioned policies are about making the economics work. It's not just about handing out money.
Right, it's about balancing the wider social benefits, like cleaner air, with the commercial reality, trying to make prices reflect true costs. And electricity pricing is part of that too. Charging at home off peak can be super cheap, maybe 5 euro cents per kilowatt hour. But using a public fast charger at peak time, that could be much more, up to 45 cents.
Okay, so pricing, batteries, scale.
Hmm.
It's complex. Now, let's talk R&D. You mentioned it's a critical indicator for companies in this space.
Hugely important. R&D intensity, how much a company spends on research relative to its income, shows its ability to innovate fast and grab market share in this super competitive EV market.
And the advantages of high R&D are pretty clear, I guess. Better tech, cooler products.
Exactly. High R&D leads to cutting-edge tech, advanced products, and that attracts those early adopters, people wanting the latest thing. That helps companies seize market share quickly, build a brand, and ideally turn a profit.
You see that with companies like Tesla, right? Leading on autonomous driving software, over-the-air updates.
Absolutely. Or look at BYD in China, big breakthroughs in battery tech, and even making their own crucial components like IGBTs, the power control chips, and R&D leads to patents protecting those innovations. Tesla filed way more patents than BYD or XPeng in 2019-2020, although interestingly, XPeng, even with less total spending than Tesla, had a high number of patent applications for its R&D level.
Okay, but there's a flip side, isn't there? Too much R&D can be risky.
Oh, definitely. If a company plows too much of its income into R&D, especially as a percentage, it can leave them with virtually no cash reserves. That's a huge financial risk if they hit any kind of trouble.
Can you give an example?
XPeng Motor is a good case study. Back in 2019, they apparently invested almost all their revenue into R&D.
Wow, really?
Yeah, and it led to massive losses early on, something like 5.9 billion yuan lost in just 2.5 years. Spending that intensely means you risk literally running out of money for day-to-day operations, paying suppliers. It could even lead to bankruptcy if things go wrong.
So it's a high-wire act. And companies face other risks, too, beyond just R&D spending.
For sure. Tesla's had product issues, like a battery cooling problem on the early Model S, and now they face huge marketing risks from all the competition flooding in from legacy automakers and new EV players. That's expected to eat into their global market share.
What about BYD? You said they're technologically strong?
They are, but they've had production headaches like 3.5-month waits for some cars in 2021, and profitability has been squeezed. Their net profit rates reportedly dropped from around 20% down to just 3% over 2 decades as their costs went up.
So the bottom line on R&D is balance.
Pretty much. Find the right level of investment relative to revenue, manage the risks carefully. It's about sustainable innovation, not just throwing money at problems.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Beyond the cars and the R&D, the whole ecosystem matters.
Yeah.
Charging infrastructure, business models.
Absolutely essential. You can't have mass EV adoption without robust ways to charge them. Even back around 2012, European cities were trying all sorts of things. Special EV parking spots, roaming payment systems, monthly subscriptions.
Battery swapping too, right?
Yeah, battery swapping stations were being piloted, and even things like intelligent sockets to manage charging times automatically, save money on electricity, and avoid overloading the local grid.
And that company, Better Place, they had a model where they owned the battery.
That's right, partnered with Renault, they own the batteries, and you'd pull into a station and swap your depleted battery for a full one in just a few minutes, like filling up with gas.
It didn't quite take off globally, did it?
No, it faced challenges. But the idea of separating battery ownership from car ownership is still around. Some experts think manufacturers might eventually keep ownership of the battery pack for its whole life, maybe across several leases,
Why would they do that?
mainly for recycling and managing the valuable materials. But it could also give them more control over pricing, warranties, maybe even insurance and financing tied to the battery's condition. It could really change the ownership model.
Interesting. And all this happens against the backdrop of policy and economics. We touched on subsidies.
Yeah, subsidies are key in the medium term to get things moving, overcome those barriers, boost volumes, lower costs. And as we said, to offset existing distortions like fuel taxes or lack of carbon pricing, it helps level the playing field.
But it's a constantly moving target, isn't it? Because gas cars are getting cleaner too.
Exactly. Internal combustion engines aren't standing still. They're improving under stricter emissions rules. And eventually, as more EVs hit the road, governments will have to figure out road funding. Right now, fuel taxes pay for a lot of road maintenance, and EVs don't pay that directly. That will need to change.
So, wrapping this all up,
hmm
what's the big picture takeaway for someone listening?
I think it's that the EV revolution is this really dynamic mix of things.
hmm
You've got the tech advancing super fast, you've got consumer priorities shifting especially towards the environment, you've got huge strategic bets on R&D, and these evolving economic models and policies trying to keep pace.
And while that upfront cost is still a hurdle,
It is, but the trend towards price parity and wider adoption seems, well, pretty much inevitable, driven by better, cheaper batteries, more places to charge, and just the sheer scale of production kicking in.
it really feels like more than just changing how cars are powered.
Oh, absolutely. It's a case study in how values, innovation, and policy can totally reshape a massive industry. And like we discussed, it might fundamentally change how we even think about owning a car. Maybe it becomes more of a service, especially the battery part.
That's a fascinating thought to end on. Will we own the car, but lease or subscribe to the battery? Lots to think about.
Definitely. The next decade is going to be transformative.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. If you enjoyed this deep dive and found these insights valuable, please do consider liking this episode and subscribing to our channel. We aim to bring you more shortcuts to being well informed.